Hello everyone and welcome back to the arena for another season of Dungeons and Death Battles, the series where we search for the most lethal monster in all of Dungeons and Dragons. The rules are simple. The fight takes place in the arena, combatants start 30 feet apart, there is no fleeing the arena, and victory is achieved by kill only. In this third season of Dungeons and Death Battles, 16 deadly dungeon denizens will be duking it out to find out which one of them is worthy of being crowned the CR3 Arena Champion. Today we will be continuing on with the Season 3 qualifier with the spectacular Gold Dragon Wyrmling taking on the hemorrhaging Hook Horror to see which will rise triumphantly into the quarterfinals. As I speak, the creatures and their teams are busy setting everything in order for the upcoming battle, which means we can jump into a fresh combatant analysis. Kicking things off, we have none other than the feisty Gold Dragon Wyrmling, a representative of the metallic dragonflights who will be set on proving themselves against whatever unspeakable horrors the arenas throw towards them. A true champion of the good powers, the Gold Dragon Wyrmling boasts a very solid 17 AC with an equally respectable 60 average hit points. Its stats themselves are solid with nothing below average and a very solid 19 in strength, 17 constitution and 16 charisma, making this creature a standout competitor in the series so far. This dragon also comes bundled with the ability to fly as well as those extremely deadly breath weapon attacks that prove themselves crowd-pleasing spectacles time and time again. This draconic pretender also packs a deadly bite which could spell doom for melee opponents. But it is by no means going to be an easy victory, as on the other side of the arena stands the Underdark denizen. We have the Hook Horror, which is currently being corralled by a team of Underdark specialists who know just how to avoid getting sliced open by that pair of raking hooks which this monstrosity is named after. While possessing less flashy abilities than its shimmering gold opponent, the Hook Horror brings to the table a tenacious 75 hit point average and 15 AC, both very respectable numbers. Its statistic spread is also quite strong, with highlights being an 18 in strength and 15 in constitution, although this creature does lack more developed mental stats such as intelligence and charisma, which will mean that the Hook Horror is more likely to act off of instinct. With all that said, best keep your potions of fire resistance close to hand as we kick off this CR3 qualifier bout with some rolls for initiative, starting with the Gold Dragon Wyrmling and its +2 modifier. A +2 to this roll, and that is a 13 +2 for 15, very respectable there. Let's see if the Hook Horror can do anything to seize the initiative here. So rolling in for the Hook Horror, no modifier to this. Its 10 dex does mean this is going to be a flat roll, and with a 13, it has completely matched the Gold Dragon Wyrmling's energy here, but without that modifier, it is going to be surrendering initiative to the Gold Dragon Wyrmling, which is going to waste absolutely no time at all in taking to the air, pretty much as expected, where it will then fly over towards the Hook Horror, where it is going to release its very first gout of fire breath upon its opponent. And this does mean that the Hook Horror must now make a DC 13 dexterity saving throw to avoid taking 4d10 points of fire damage. The Hook Horror rolling in as it tries to dodge out the way of this fire breath. Again, no modifier to this, so it's reliant totally on whatever the dice rolls. And with a 5, that does mean that the Hook Horror is going to be susceptible to the full 4d10 points of fire damage, as it has been unable to dip out the way of that blazing lick. And so Gold Dragon Wyrmling rolling in 4d10 points of fire damage here. And that is a decent roll right there, with 6 and a 9 for 15, plus that 3 for 18, and plus that 4 there for 22 points of damage, which is going to bring the Hook Horror down from 75 to 53 hit points as the flames begin to flicker and light up around its carapace. An unpleasant introduction to the arena for the Hook Horror for sure, and it does very much look like the Gold Dragon Wyrmling is currently enjoying itself up there. As we hand over to the Hook Horror, which is left without much option other than to look up to the Gold Dragon and hiss ferociously. But what are we witnessing here? The Hook Horror is glimpsing around the arena, seemingly looking for something, and it looks like it's eyeing up the edge of the arena wall. Now the Hook Horror does have a 30-foot climb speed in addition to its 30-foot walk speed, so it may be that it intends to put this to good use. Only time will tell. But it does look like the Hook Horror has dashed over to one of the noble statues that stand guard around the arena, and it has begun to climb. It's not made it very far up just yet, but this looks like the start of a plan. Another Gold Dragon Wyrmling potentially semi-confused by this, as it's possible that the dragon wasn't expecting much strategy from its more bestial opponent. But all that said, it is here to fight and win, and it is going to want to close the gap with the Hook Horror. But first things first, we are going to roll a d6 and see if the dragon does recharge its breath weapon. So we are looking for a 5 or a 6 on this roll, and with a 4, that is unfortunate. The dragon is not going to gain access to its breath weapon yet this turn, but it is going to fly in towards the Hook Horror, not quite managing to close the gap, making it around 30 feet away from that Hook Horror. And now we are going to hand back over to the Underdark monstrosity, which is going to continue using its movement to climb up that statue. Hopefully it avoids chipping off any of the stonework. We'll have to get the Kobold Mafia lined up for repairs later on after the battle. But it does look like the Hook Horror has reached the pinnacle of the statue, where it is locking its eyes towards the Gold Dragon Wyrmling, hissing, its barbed tongue lashing back and forth as it issues a challenge to its opponent. And it does look like it is going to dig its claws into the statue and it prepares to hold some kind of action, potentially to lash out at the Gold Dragon should it get within range. And now we are going to hand over to the Wyrmling, which is once again going to see if it can recharge that breath weapon. So once again, a 5 or a 6 on this roll. And once again, a 4 is going to mean that it's not going to make it. And as a result, its age showing its lack of wisdom here. And the Gold Dragon Wyrmling is going to fly in for a bite attack against that hook horror, using 25 feet of its movement to get into range, where it will attempt to snap towards its opponent, but not before the hook horror acts on its reaction, as this is the moment that it was waiting for. And as the Gold Dragon Wyrmling flies in within range to make that bite attack, the hook horror, clinging onto the top of the statue, is going to launch itself off of the top of the arena and onto the back of the Gold Dragon Wyrmling, where it will attempt to grapple its foe. And let's see what the hook horror can do here as it rolls in with an attack with the intent to grapple, looking to beat an AC of 17 here, and with an 18 plus 4 for 22. That is looking like a very strong hold right there. And as the attack has indeed struck home, that does mean that the Gold Dragon Wyrmling is now grappled by the hook horror, which will be slamming it down into the ground very, very shortly. And as the creatures both fall in tandem to earth, they will now be both taking 2d6 points of fall damage as they are falling around 30 feet, which means 20 feet of those will be taken into account for this damage. So rolling in 2d6 points. And that is a pretty hectic fall right there. Dust from the arena billows up as these two monsters collide with the ground, each taking 7 points of damage for the privilege, which will leave the Gold Dragon Wyrmling on 53 hit points and the hook horror on 46. But that being said, the hook horror's claws are still well and firmly sunk deep into the back of the Gold Dragon Wyrmling as the creature remains grappled. And now it's easy to forget, but we are still on the Gold Dragon Wyrmling's turn, which does mean it will still get to make that bite attack. And this won't massively be hindered by that grapple, but this will be rolling in at disadvantage due to the Gold Dragon Wyrmling currently being prone and not having enough movement to break the condition. So here we go, let's see what we get. And that natural 20 would have been real nice, but a 3 plus 6 for 9 is absolutely not going to cut it, as the hook horror does indeed use its spare claw to simply bash the Gold Dragon Wyrmling's head aside, deflecting that bite completely. And so now we will be handing back over to the hook horror, which does have the Gold Dragon Wyrmling grappled with its hook, and this does mean that the creature can only use one of its hooks to make an attack. However, due to the Gold Dragon Wyrmling being prone and the hook horror being within 5 feet of its target, this will be at advantage. And at the start of its turn, the hook horror will stand to remove that prone condition. So the hook horror getting a very, very solid attempt here at the Gold Dragon Wyrmling, rolling in a hook at advantage, and there we go. A 19 plus 6 for 25 is certainly going to connect, which does mean it now gets to roll in 2d6 plus 4 points of piercing damage. Gold Dragon Wyrmling is a much better fighter while airborne, and it is showing right here. The hook horror is a much more natural grappler and is proving its worth. 2d6 plus 4 points of piercing damage, rolling in. And with a 5 and a 4 for 9, plus that 4 there for 13 points of damage, that is a decent connection there, which will bring the Gold Dragon Wyrmling down to 40 hit points, as the hook horror retains its grasp upon the Gold Dragon Wyrmling, pinning it in place. But with that said, we will be handing back over to the Wyrmling, which will look to recover its breath weapon once more. So rolling in that d6, a 5 or a 6 required again. And with a 5, there we go. That is what the Gold Dragon Wyrmling was looking for, and it has recovered its breath weapon. But instead of using that fire breath, this time it is going to go for weakening breath in an attempt to get that hook horror to release its grasp. And that does mean that the hook horror must now succeed on a DC 13 strength saving throw, or be forced to have disadvantage on strength-based attack rolls, strength checks, and strength saving throws for 1 minute. So hook horror rolling in again, a +4 to this roll. And that is a disappointing 2 plus 4 for 6. As the weakening breath, the gas from the Gold Dragon Wyrmling seeps around the hook horror into all of its pores, seeping through to its brain and addling the creature, agitating it to the point where its muscles begin to weaken and wane as it does succumb to the Gold Dragon Wyrmling's weakening breath. But that was its action, and all the dragon can do in return is stand up to remove the prone condition from itself, as we do once again hand over to the hook horror, which is going to see what is going on and is once again going to make that single hook attack, still wanting to retain that grapple to keep the Gold Dragon Wyrmling from leaping back into the air again. And so a hook coming in once more, but this time at disadvantage due to the weakening breath. Let's see what the hook horror can do. A complete flip of situations here. And with 2 8s on the dice there, that +6 is only going to bring it up to a 14, which is nowhere near the AC of 17 it was looking to beat. But at the end of the hook horror's turn, it is going to get an opportunity to break out of the weakening breath stupor, and so it will need to beat a DC 13 strength saving throw, which of course, due to the effects of the breath itself, is at disadvantage. So rolling in, see if it can shake off the weakening breath. At disadvantage, a 4 with a +4 modifier is only going to bring it up to 8. That 16 would have been real sweet, but unfortunately that is the nature of the breath weapon, and the hook horror remains weakened, as we do hand over to the Gold Dragon Wyrmling, which is now going to roll in to see if it can recharge its breath weapon. Once again, a 5 or a 6 required. And a 5 yet again. The Gold Dragon Wyrmling is rolling these in really well now, and it will be very pleased to be doing so. But for now, it will be using its advantage and seeing if it can break away from the hook horror, and it will use its action to attempt to break out of that grapple, which of course will once again be a contested strength check. So we are going to roll in the Gold Dragon Wyrmling first. It does have a +4 modifier to this roll, and it has rolled in pretty low. It's rolled in a 5 with that +4 bringing that up to a 9 as it struggles to get out of the hook horror's grip. But that is of course going to be contested at disadvantage due to the weakening breath that the dragon has set up for itself. The hook horror rolling in to see if it can maintain its clutch over the Gold Dragon Wyrmling. And with a 2 +4 for 6, that is going to seal the deal right there, as the Dragon Wyrmling is able to wrench itself out of the hook horror's grasp, where it will then boost itself away from its captor back into the sky, but not, of course, before taking an opportunity attack as the hook horror lashes out once again at disadvantage. So let's see if it manages to nick the Gold Dragon Wyrmling as it flies out of melee combat. And with a 13 +6 for 19, that attack is going to land, and the Gold Dragon Wyrmling will once again be susceptible to 2d6 +4 points of piercing damage as it leaves combat. It will have really been hoping to have left that zone damage free, but that was not in its stars, it would seem. 2d6 +4 points of piercing damage rolling in, and a 2 +4 for 6 +4 for 10 points of damage is going to be another stinging wound for the Gold Dragon Wyrmling as it finds itself down on 30 hit points. And upon the Gold Dragon Wyrmling's fortunate escape, we will be handing back over to the hook horror, which is going to begin its turn by once again hissing towards the Gold Dragon Wyrmling before making a bolting action back towards the wall, which it will spend around 20 feet of its movement to reach before beginning its journey once again, scaling back up to the top of that statue. And with that, it will hold an action once again in preparation for the Gold Dragon Wyrmling to get too close. As we come to the end of the hook horror's turn, it is going to get the chance to roll in and see if it can get rid of that weakening breath once again. So still on disadvantage here, looking to beat a DC 13 strength saving throw. And with 2 18s, it has been persistent, and it has managed to shake that gas away, removing those negative effects from itself as it looks towards the Gold Dragon Wyrmling, vicious intent roiling in its eyes. But with that, it is unable to do anything else this turn, and so initiative will pass back round to the Gold Dragon Wyrmling. And as we do hand over to the Gold Dragon Wyrmling, it has already recharged its breath weapon, which it will be holding in the chamber for later, and so the Gold Dragon Wyrmling is going to take the dodge action, anticipating that the hook horror might make a similar move as last time. It's 14 intelligence, allowing it a decent amount of planning capabilities. And with that, the dragon will fly within range of the hook horror, which is, as predicted, going to jump out towards the Gold Dragon once again, lashing out with its claws, and the hook horror still looking to grapple the Gold Dragon Wyrmling with this, as it uses that held action to swing out towards the Gold Dragon Wyrmling with its hooks. And that rules as written does unfortunately mean that the hook horror is only able to lash out with one of those claws, despite its multi-attack feature, but that's by the by, and it will be making one attack right here at disadvantage now as it launches itself towards the Gold Dragon Wyrmling, as it attempts to grapple the creature once again, and that'll be a 7 +4 on that check for 11, which does mean that the hook horror has miserably missed beating the Gold Dragon Wyrmling's AC of 17, and as such has missed that attack. As the hook horror leaps from its perch and attempts to slash upon the Gold Dragon Wyrmling, it performs a sweet aerial maneuver and gets right out of the way, forcing the hook horror to take 2d6 points of fall damage once again as it topples back down to the ground. Its gambit not paying off for a second time. So rolling in once again, 2d6 points of falling damage for the hook horror. Oh, and that is big. That is a 6 and a 4 for 10 full points of fall damage right there, which is going to bring the hook horror down to 36 hit points. And the Gold Dragon Wyrmling is going to glance over smugly to the crowd, likely trying to pick somebody out to recognize its glorious accomplishment and its incredibly intelligent strategizing. And with that show of dexterous aerial acrobatics out the way, we are going to hand back over to the hook horror, which is currently prone, and it is going to use half of its movement to stand before using the other half to get back over to the base of that statue. It's seemingly not wanting to let up on this strategy. It is the best way that it's managed to cause any damage yet, and the creature is hellish with rage at this point. But that does mean we hand over to the Gold Dragon Wyrmling, which, as we know, has its breath weapon in the chamber, and this time it will be unleashing that fire breath as it flies down to within 15 feet of the hook horror, where it will unleash its cone of blazing fury. Once again, a DC 13 dexterity saving throw to avoid this for the hook horror, and that is something we cannot ignore. That is 2 natural 20s right there for the hook horror. It is really not counting itself out of this battle just yet, and that goes to show it. The odds of such an incredibly dexterous maneuver to get out of the way of this breath is absolutely ridiculous, and the hook horror right here has pulled it off tonight, dipping out of the way of that Gold Dragon Wyrmling's flame, but still taking half damage even for the full force of its efforts. Now I think of it, I got carried away in the moment, and I'm not entirely sure why the hook horror did roll in at disadvantage, but it was very impressive nonetheless. Now that really is something you do not see every day, and it's likely that even the Gold Dragon Wyrmling will have been impressed at that legendary skill of acrobatics, but still it will be taking some damage, and so we will be rolling in 4d10, for which the hook horror will be taking half. And that was a 107 for 8, plus the additional 8 for 16, plus that 4 for 20, which is, of course, going to be halved down to just 10 points of damage, which will reduce the Hook Horror to 26 hit points. The Gold Dragon Wyrmling will definitely have wanted more out of that, but the crowd is hollering in appreciation at the Hook Horror's sheer aptitude for staying alive right now. And we will hand back over to the Hook Horror, which is going to once again use its climbing speed to get back up on top of that 30-foot high statue, locking in and preparing once again to make its dive. But the Gold Dragon Wyrmling is looking for an end right here, and knowing that the Hook Horror has used all of its movement to get back to its perch, it knows that should it attack directly from above, the Hook Horror will likely not have enough launch to grapple it at 15 feet high, and so we will be rolling in to see if the Gold Dragon Wyrmling recharges its breath weapon once again, looking for a 5 or a 6 here. And there it is, the 6 rolling through. Both of these creatures rolling for maximums here. They both clearly want this podium spot in order to advance through to the quarterfinal round, and the Gold Dragon Wyrmling looking to do so right here with yet another gout of fire breath, which it will be enacting upon and blasting towards the Hook Horror, which, while it had previously readied an action, will leap towards the Gold Dragon Wyrmling, but as predicted will be a couple of feet shy of actually making contact, even with its hook's reach of 10 feet. And the Gold Dragon Wyrmling will be raining death upon the Hook Horror once more as the creature rolls again to see if it can avoid that blast, and it did provide one of the best rolls we've seen in the series, so this one will be rolling in flat, not because of that previous roll, but because it should have rolled in flat anyway. And so here we go. Oh, but there it is. That is a 7 plus 0 for 7, which does mean that the Hook Horror is going to be taking on the full brunt of the Gold Dragon Wyrmling's 4d10 points of fire damage. And so rolling in here once again, 4d10 points of fire damage against the Hook Horror. Can the Gold Dragon Wyrmling finish it right here? And that is an incredibly high roll there from the Gold Dragon Wyrmling and that fire breath, with 6, 6, and 6 for 18 points of damage, plus that 10 for 28 points total, which is going to drop the Hook Horror from 26 down to 0 as the flames lick around its body, completely capturing it and immersing it in burning fire, reducing the creature to nothing more than ash as it stands atop that statue, becoming a grandstanding pyre to be observed by the audience here tonight. And what an epic battle we've just witnessed. Definitely one of the most exciting we've seen here, but one that did ultimately see the Gold Dragon Wyrmling taking victory over the Hook Horror and rising through into the quarterfinal rounds. And again, to reiterate, what an exciting battle here tonight. Thank you all very, very much for joining me, and I hope you will join me again next time when the Manticore takes on the Owlbear in a battle of the monstrosities. And of course, if you did enjoy what you witnessed, please consider dropping a like on the video, commenting down below, and subscribing to the channel. There's also the option to check out the Patreon, which hosts both free and paid tiers, where you can do interactive things such as vote for your favorite monsters prior to their combats and show your support for your favorite arena denizen. But other than that, thank you once again for watching, and I will see you again in another video very soon.